In the heart of New York, where the city's rhythm never slows, stood the Grandeur Hotel, a true monument to luxury and elegance. With its imposing facades clad in polished marble and stunning interiors adorned with sparkling crystal chandeliers, the hotel was a sanctuary for the world's elite. On a typical autumn day, with the gray sky casting a soft light over the city, a man of modest appearance walked through the main entrance of the hotel. Albert Kramer, dressed in a worn coat and simple trousers that barely hinted at his experiences, strode with firm steps through the majestic lobby of the Grandeur. His backpack, as worn as his clothes, carried more than belongings. It was a repository of memories from long journeys and experiences accumulated around the world. Albert's eyes, clear and penetrating, reflected a calm and serenity that stood out amid the opulence surrounding him. As he approached the reception, intending to check in, his serene gaze swept the environment, discreetly observing every detail of the place he once called home. He was interrupted by a young clerk who, upon seeing his simple attire, hesitated for a moment before greeting him. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" asked the clerk with a polite but reserved smile. "Good morning, young man. I would like to check in for a stay," Albert replied in a soft but firm voice, maintaining a courtesy that seemed rare given his attire. The clerk, still a bit unsure, began to process the request. However, the interaction was abruptly interrupted by an authoritative voice echoing through the lobby. "One moment, please," exclaimed Percy, the hotel manager, quickly approaching with long strides and a look of disapproval. His rigid posture and critical gaze contrasted sharply with the clerk's kindness. Percy examined Albert from head to toe, his expression hardening as he assessed the elderly man's worn attire. "Sir, I believe there has been a mistake. This is a high-standard establishment in your appearance." Percy paused, choosing his words with barely disguised disdain. "Your appearance does not seem compatible with what we expect from our guests." Albert, maintaining his composure, replied with dignity, "My dear, appearances can be deceiving. I assure you my stay here will not be a problem." "I insist, sir. Perhaps there is another place more suitable for you elsewhere in the city," Percy interrupted, his voice cold and decisive. At that moment, other guests began to notice the discussion, casting curious glances in their direction. Albert, sensing the familiar opulence around him mixed with the coldness of the treatment he was receiving, decided not to prolong the confrontation. With a slight nod, he stepped away from the counter, his eyes still calm, but with a glint of determination suggesting this would not be his last act that day. As Albert walked away, the Grangeur's lobby slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the scene left a lingering question that would extend into the next chapter. What would bring a man of such humility back to a place of such grandeur? The tension in the air was palpable as Albert approached the reception desk, a stark contrast between his faded coat and the opulence that surrounded him. He handed his document to the clerk with a gentle smile, attempting to check in. But before the young man could start typing the details, a sharp voice interrupted the process. "Sir, I think you're in the wrong place. This hotel doesn't accept vagrants." Percy's voice, the hotel manager, resonated through the lobby, severe and cold, slicing through the tranquility of the environment like a sharp blade. The ensuing silence was almost tangible as the eyes of guests and staff turned to the unfolding scene. Albert, whose presence had gone almost unnoticed until then, was now under the spotlight of an unwanted audience. His face remained serene, but his eyes shone with a light of restrained indignation. "Percy, there's no need to be so harsh," Albert replied, his voice maintaining a perfect balance between calm and authority, a distant echo of a man who once commanded that very lobby. "This is a respectable establishment, and I have the responsibility to uphold certain standards." Percy retorted, approaching with decisive steps and rigid posture, his manager badge swinging ostentatiously on his chest. "I fully understand the Grangeur's standards, Percy. However, I would like to assure you that my stay here will not diminish those standards in any way," Albert continued, trying to appeal to a sense of reasonableness that seemed absent in the manager. Percy, with a brusque gesture, signaled to the security guards who began to approach. They were two large men, impeccably dressed, but with expressions that promised no kindness. "I insist, sir," I ask that you leave voluntarily before I have to ask the security guards to do it, Percy said, his voice raised enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Albert looked around, seeing the faces of the guests, some with expressions of empathy, others of disdain. Deciding that this was not the moment for a larger confrontation, he nodded slightly to the security guards, a gesture of peaceful acceptance of the situation. "Very well, Percy. No further effort on your part will be necessary," Albert said, and with his dignity intact, he began to walk away from the counter, each measured step echoing in the marble of the lobby. The security guards followed him closely, ensuring his exit from the hotel was definitive. As he passed through the revolving doors, Albert felt the gaze of many still trying to understand the unusual scene. As he walked away, the grandeur returned to its usual rhythm, but the incident had planted seeds of questioning in some and clear indignation in others. Outside the luxury of the grandeur, Albert found refuge in a small cafe on the street, a simple yet welcoming place that contrasted sharply with the hotel. It was there that he met Lisa, a journalist who noticed the older man alone, his thoughtful expression behind a still steaming cup of coffee. Intrigued, she approached, pulling up a chair. "It looks like you've had a tough day. May I join you?" Lisa asked, her notepad already ready for a story. "Please, be my guest," Albert replied, smiling slightly, realizing he might have found an unexpected ally. As they began to talk, the world outside continued its frenetic dance. But for Albert, that moment in the cafe marked the beginning of something new, a chance to tell his story in a different light. The small cafe where Albert took refuge was nestled among New York's concrete and glass giants, an island of tranquility amid the urban chaos. Inside, the aroma of freshly ground coffee and homemade pastries filled the air, offering immediate comfort to the newcomer. Albert chose a secluded corner, where the soft light and murmur of conversations created an environment conducive to reflection. With a sigh of relief, he settled in, distancing himself from the bitterness of the confrontation at the hotel. Lisa, the journalist who was at the cafe for a canceled interview, observed the older man. The sadness in his eyes caught her attention. She was trained to notice untold stories. With a mug of tea in hand, she approached Albert, driven by both curiosity and empathy. "May I sit down?" Lisa asked, indicating the empty chair in front of him. Albert looked up, a little surprised, but nodded. "Of course, young lady," he replied, giving a shy smile. "I couldn't help but notice that you seem a bit down. If it's not too intrusive, may I ask what happened?" Lisa inquired, her soft voice conveying genuine concern. Albert hesitated, pondering how much of his story he should share. Deciding that honesty might serve a greater purpose, he began to recount the events at the grandeur, from the cold reception to his unceremonious expulsion. "And so, I was thrown out as if my presence there was an unwanted stain," Albert concluded, bitterness coloring his final words. Lisa listened with an almost palpable attentiveness, her notes quickly accumulating. Her mind was already sketching the outline of a story about discrimination and prejudice, themes she knew would resonate with many readers. "That's awful. It's not just a great injustice, but a story that needs to be told," Lisa exclaimed, already envisioning the impact the story could have. Albert, however, raised his hand, asking for restraint. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I ask that you keep this story to yourself for now. I have plans that require a bit more discretion at the moment," he said, a shrewd glint in his eyes that intrigued Lisa. Intrigued, Lisa leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "Plans? What are they about, if I may ask?" she inquired, her pen pausing over the paper. Albert smiled, realizing he might be able to trust the young journalist before him. "Let's just say I intend to change things from the inside out. I'll need to understand the environment at the grandeur better, and perhaps help restore some forgotten values," he explained, leaving out essential details, but giving Lisa enough to keep her interested. Lisa nodded, understanding the need for caution. "I understand. Well, here's my card. If you decide the story needs to be told or if you need help, I'm available," she offered, extending a business card to Albert. "Thank you very much, Lisa. I sincerely appreciate it," Albert said, taking the card and carefully placing it in his wallet. They talked for a few more minutes about lighter topics until Lisa had to leave for another meeting. Albert remained in the cafe, pondering his next move. That unexpected encounter not only gave him a potential new ally, but also reinforced his resolve to make a difference. As Albert contemplated his plan of action, life outside the cafe continued undisturbed. New York never stopped, but within that small refuge, Albert felt he had found a foothold. Now, more determined than ever, he was ready to face the challenge he had set for himself: infiltrate the grandeur and begin his mission of transformation from the inside out. The morning was crisp as Albert, now under the guise of Joe, a common name he chose to blend in without drawing attention, crossed the gates of the grandeur once more. Dressed in a simple maintenance uniform that slightly itched his skin, he carried a toolbox, his new symbol of integration. His eyes, however, maintained the glint of someone with a purpose greater than just fixing what was broken. Entering through the delivery entrance, where glances did not linger and questions were few, Albert began his first day in the shoes of Joe. His heart beat with a mixture of anxiety and determination. As he headed to the maintenance department, he observed everything around him with sharp attention, mentally noting interactions and the atmosphere of the place. The department head, a sturdy man named Marco, greeted him with a nod. "You must be the new Joe. I heard you're going to help us with electrical and general mechanics, right?" Marco spoke in a voice that carried the weight of daily responsibility. "Exactly. I'm here to help wherever needed," Albert replied, keeping his voice firm and slightly deeper than usual to fit Joe's profile. Marco spent the first few minutes of the shift showing Albert the various areas of the maintenance team's responsibility, from the underground boiler room to the air conditioning systems on the upper floors. The complexity of the facilities was impressive, and every detail was a vital piece in the smooth operation of the hotel. "And here is where we keep the tools and maintenance records. Any problems you find, document everything here," Marco instructed as he handed Albert a set of keys, symbolizing his new responsibilities. For the rest of the day, Albert worked alongside other staff, fixing minor issues and listening to the stories and complaints of his new colleagues. He noted a certain demoralization among some of them, complaints about management and the lack of recognition for their hard work. "You know, Joe, this place could be great, but sometimes I feel like we're just shadows here," commented one of the electricians, a young man named Tim, as they repaired a light fixture in the main hallway. "I think I understand what you mean, but do you think there's anything that could change that situation?" Albert asked, genuinely interested in the employees' insights. "Who knows, man? Maybe if someone upstairs really cared about us, things could be different," Tim replied with a resigned shrug. Every conversation, every little interaction provided Albert with valuable insights into the culture of the grandeur beneath its glossy surface. He was beginning to understand the dynamics and flaws that needed to be addressed to truly transform the hotel. By the end of the day, tired but satisfied with the progress, Albert locked his toolbox and headed to the locker room. As he undressed from Joe's uniform, he reflected on the challenges that awaited him. It was clear that change would not be easy or quick, but he was determined to make a difference. With new plans forming in his mind, Albert left the hotel through the back door, already thinking about his next actions. He knew he would need to win allies among the staff, and perhaps find one or two who might suspect his true identity. The mission was just beginning, and the next step would be crucial to his success. As days turned into weeks, Albert, still disguised as Joe, found himself increasingly immersed in the day-to-day life of the grandeur. His interactions with other employees not only strengthened his understanding of the hotel's internal dynamics, but also exposed him to the scrutiny of Percy, the manager whose antipathy for Joe seemed to grow with each encounter. One particularly busy afternoon, while Albert was fixing one of the ice machines that had broken down on the second floor, Percy approached with his usual air of disdain. Accompanied by one of his assistants, he watched Albert work for a moment before commenting, "Joe, it seems like you're always busy with repairs. Shouldn't we do our work correctly the first time to avoid these constant maintenance issues?" Percy said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Albert, maintaining his calm demeanor, responded without looking up, "Well, Percy, as you know, older machines tend to need more care. I'm just trying to keep everything running smoothly for our guests. Make sure it's quick. We don't pay overtime for inefficiency, Percy retorted before walking away with a disdainful gesture. As Percy walked away, Albert took a deep breath, feeling the tension slowly dissipate. It was clear that every step Joe took was being watched, but this did not discourage Albert. On the contrary, it strengthened his resolve to make significant changes. Out of Percy's sight, Albert found unexpected allies. Maria, the head of housekeeping, was one of those who began to notice something different about Joe. One afternoon, as she supervised the cleaning of the upper floors, she found Albert adjusting the thermostat in one of the corridors. "Joe, I see you all over the hotel, always helping where it's most needed." "It's not common for a maintenance worker to be so dedicated," Maria commented, a slight smile curving her lips. Albert looked at her, a glint of mutual recognition passing between them. "Maria, I believe we all have a role to play here. I just want to do my best," he replied, his voice soft but firm. "There's more to you, Joe. I can sense it. You're not here just to fix broken things, are you?" Maria asked, her penetrating gaze trying to unravel the man behind the disguise. Albert hesitated for a moment before responding. He knew that trusting someone completely could be risky, but Maria had already demonstrated her integrity and compassion. "Let's just say I'm here to better understand how things work and, who knows, maybe make some improvements beyond the machines," Albert said, giving Maria a glimpse of his true intentions. Maria nodded, a knowing smile crossing her face. "Well, Joe, if there's anything I can do to help, you have my word," she offered, extending her hand in solidarity. Albert took her hand, feeling a wave of relief and gratitude. With Maria as an ally, he felt that he could begin to make the necessary changes more openly. She had a vast network of contacts within the hotel and understood the nuances of day-to-day operations that could be crucial to his initiatives. Weeks of preparation culminated in the night of the Grandeur Hotel's grand annual ball. The event was one of the most anticipated occasions of the year, attracting a multitude of distinguished guests in their elegant attire and polished conversations. The crystal chandeliers of the main hall shone brightly, casting a golden light over the tables adorned with meticulous floral arrangements and gleaming silverware. Albert, until then disguised as Joe, felt the weight of the approaching moment. He adjusted his tie and smoothed the fabric of his best suit, a striking contrast to the maintenance uniform he had worn for months. His heart raced, not only with anticipation of what he was about to do, but also with uncertainty about how it would be received. As the guests socialized, unaware of the surprise that awaited them, Albert found Lisa in the crowd. She gave him an encouraging smile, holding a tablet from which she would control the presentation of the investigative article they had prepared together. "Are you ready for this, Albert?" Lisa asked, her voice almost drowned out by the orchestral music filling the room. "More than ever. It's time to bring the truth to light," Albert replied, his eyes scanning the room, pausing briefly on Percy, who was animatedly conversing with some important guests. The time had come, and Albert made his way to the stage, his steps firm yet careful. The murmurs of the crowd gradually quieted as he positioned himself before the microphone, curiosity evident on the faces turned his way. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" Albert began, his clear and powerful voice dominating the hall. Percy, noticing Albert's figure on stage, frowned, confused and slightly irritated. He moved quickly between the tables, his intent clear to interrupt what he presumed was an inappropriate protest by a disgruntled employee. "What do you think you're doing, Joe?" Percy demanded, his voice loud enough to draw even more attention. Before he could reach the stage, Lisa intervened, tapping the tablet and starting the projection of the investigative article they had prepared. The walls of the hall were filled with images and texts revealing Albert's true identity and the series of events that had led him there. "This man you know as Joe is, in fact, Albert Kramer, the founder and true owner of this hotel," Lisa announced, her firm voice overshadowing the night's soundtrack. The guests' reaction was immediate and varied, with expressions of surprise and shock spreading through the hall. Murmurs and whispers grew as the implications of what they were seeing and hearing began to sink in. Percy stopped, stunned, his anger giving way to disbelief as he looked at Albert, who was now revealing his story and his reasons for returning to the grandeur incognito. I came back to understand the current state of the hotel and to ensure that the grandeur continues to be a symbol of excellence and respect, values with which it was founded. Albert continued, his gaze sweeping the room and meeting familiar faces, some nodding in recognition and support. With the hall now completely immersed in his narrative, Albert prepared to reveal his future intentions, promising transformations that would redefine not only the hotel's management, but also how they treated their employees and guests. The Grangeur's Hall, now illuminated by Albert's revelations, was a whirlwind of emotions. The guests, still absorbing the impact of the news, turned their attention to the man who was reaffirming himself as the leader and visionary of one of the city's most prestigious hotels. Albert, standing on stage, looked at the crowd with a serene expression, but with the firmness of someone who knew that this was just the beginning of a new era. Ladies and gentlemen, the true essence of hospitality lies not only in luxury or aesthetics, but in the respect and care for every person who walks through our doors, whether as a guest or as part of our team, Albert began, his voice echoing through the now silent hall. He paused, allowing his words to settle, before continuing. During my absence, I watched from a distance, and recently, among you, in disguise, I saw what the grandeur had become. And I can say that it is time for us to change together, to restore the values that once defined this place. Murmurs of agreement began to spread among the guests, while some employees, recognizing the depth of his sincerity, nodded with renewed hope. Percy, still visibly shaken and now marginalized, watched from afar, his face a mask of consternation. Therefore, as of today, I am resuming leadership of the grandeur, Albert announced, prompting a wave of surprised and enthusiastic applause. And with that, I promise not only changes, but a revolution in the way we operate. We will implement policies that truly value our employees, ensuring that they are seen and treated with the dignity they deserve. He then detailed some of the imminent changes, including improved training programs, enhanced employee benefits, and a complete review of the hotel's management practices to ensure transparency and fairness. I want the grandeur to be an example, a place where excellence in service is matched by excellence in our human treatment, Albert declared, his clear and ambitious vision for the future inspiring everyone in the hall. The guests began to talk among themselves, commenting on the promised changes and Albert's dramatic return. Amidst these conversations, Albert stepped down from the stage, walking among the tables, greeting old acquaintances and employees who approached to express their support and gratitude. Lisa, watching from the side, felt a mix of pride and admiration. She knew that the story she had helped reveal would not only restore Albert's legacy, but also positively influence the lives of many people associated with the grandeur. As the night progressed, Albert felt invigorated by the acceptance and support he received. He knew that challenges still lay ahead, but he also knew that he would not be facing them alone. With the support of the employees and the guests, he was ready to begin the hard work of transformation. As the last note of the orchestra faded and the guests began to depart, the Grangeur's Hall, filled with promises of renewal and progress, prepared to witness the dawn of a new era. Albert, as he mingled with the last groups of guests, was already beginning to plan the first steps of this transformative journey. As the sun rose over the city, illuminating the intricate details of the Grangeur's facade, a new phase of leadership and values began to take shape. With Percy's departure, whose dismissal marked the end of an era of questionable management, Albert was free to put into practice his vision of a fairer and more equitable administration. In his first action as the renewed leader, Albert called a meeting with all the department heads. In the luxurious conference room, with its heavy velvet curtains and a large crystal chandelier, the hotel's leadership team gathered, many still feeling the electricity of the previous night's announcement. Good morning, everyone. As you know, we are entering a new era for the grandeur. An era that will value each of you not just as employees, but as vital pieces of this historic enterprise, Albert began, his tone calm but filled with determination. The leaders, some curious and others visibly excited, leaned in to listen to Albert's words, We will start by implementing a policy of pay equity and a review of benefits. I want to ensure that everyone here is recognized and fairly rewarded for the hard work they perform, Albert continued as he handed out folders with the new guidelines and policies. The reception was positive, with many nodding in agreement, relieved and encouraged by the imminent change. Maria, now promoted to Director of Operations, shared her perspective. Albert, this is more than welcome. Many of us have been waiting for fair recognition for years. I'm confident this will not only improve morale, but also the service we provide. Exactly, Maria. And it doesn't stop there. We will also be implementing continuous training programs, not just to improve skills, but to promote the personal and professional growth of each individual, Albert added, detailing plans for workshops and seminars. Additionally, Albert introduced a new open feedback policy, encouraging all employees to share their ideas and concerns directly with management, ensuring that their voices would be heard and considered. As the meeting progressed, enthusiasm grew. The new policies promised not only a fairer work environment, but also a more humane and personal approach to hotel management. In the days and weeks that followed, the changes began to take shape. Posters with the Grandeur's new values and mission were placed in strategic areas, and suggestion boxes were installed in each department. Employees began to feel more valued, which was reflected in their performance and how they interacted with guests. The reputation of the Grandeur, which had suffered under the previous administration, began to recover. Positive comments and guest reviews flooded online platforms, praising not only the impeccable facilities, but also the exceptional and welcoming service. Albert watched all of this with a mix of pride and relief. He knew the journey to true excellence was just beginning, but each positive step reinforced his belief that they were on the right path. With a motivated team and high morale, the Grandeur was not just flourishing, but transforming into a true home for everyone who crossed its doors. As Albert's new policies took root in the Grandeur, the hotel began to shine, not only in its architectural grandeur, but also in its revitalized spirit. The changes did not go unnoticed by regular guests and the media, who often highlighted the Grandeur as a pioneering example of equity and innovation in the hospitality industry. In this environment of renewal, the relationship between Lisa and Albert also flourished. They frequently met at the hotel's new cafe, an elegant space overlooking the carefully maintained gardens, to discuss not only the progress of Albert's initiatives, but also ideas for future social projects. On a clear spring afternoon, while enjoying an aromatic coffee, Lisa brought up a topic she had long considered. Albert, you have transformed this place in ways many thought impossible. Your vision for the Grandeur is inspiring, but what about expanding that impact? Have you thought about documenting your journey in a book? Lisa suggested, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Albert smiled, contemplative, stirring his coffee with a spoon. You know, Lisa, that idea has crossed my mind. The story of the Grandeur is one of transformation and hope, something that could certainly inspire others, he replied, the glint in his eyes reflecting the possibility of sharing his experience with a wider audience. We could start a project together, maybe a book or a series of lectures. There's so much people can learn from what you've done here, Lisa continued, excited about the idea of collaborating on something that combined her skills as a journalist with Albert's lessons in leadership and humanity. I'm on board. I think beyond inspiring, we could use this as a platform to promote broader social change, Albert agreed, already envisioning the myriad possibilities. As the conversation flowed, it was evident that Albert's legacy was evolving. It was no longer limited to the renovation of a hotel, but to redefining how businesses could and should operate, with a genuine commitment to dignity and human respect. The friendship between Lisa and Albert, cemented in shared values and mutual admiration, became a powerful engine for change. Together, they were ready to take the Grandeur's message beyond its imposing columns and luxurious halls. The sun began to set, tinting the sky with shades of orange and pink as they left the cafe. Walking through the Grandeur's corridors, now echoing with laughter and lively conversations, they knew that every step they took was part of a greater journey, one that promised not only to restore a legacy, but to create a new one for future generations. The Grandeur had never been more splendid. Recent renovations and policy changes had transformed the hotel into a palpable symbol of ethical luxury and inclusion. With each step through the re-energized corridors, Albert Kramer saw reflections of the choices he had made, from the renewed art on the walls to the smiles of the staff, now more confident and engaged. One sunny afternoon, with sunlight filtering through the wide windows of his office, Albert met with his leadership team to discuss the next steps. The atmosphere was filled with cautious optimism, each team member aware of the role they played in the new era of the grandeur. We've made significant progress, and I am more than pleased with where we've arrived. But the real challenge is to maintain this trajectory and build upon it, Albert began, his gaze sweeping across the faces of those present. Our guests are beginning to notice the change, and the reviews have been incredibly positive. Maria, now in charge of hotel operations, nodded, holding a folder filled with graphs and data. The numbers are promising, Albert. Our satisfaction rates have never been higher, and employee turnover is at its lowest point in years. I believe the training initiatives and increased benefits have really made a difference, she reported, offering the folder to Albert. He briefly flipped through the contents, a smile forming on his face. That's excellent. And what about the new marketing campaigns? How is the public reception? Albert asked, looking at Thomas, the head of marketing. Well, we're seeing growing interest not only locally, but also from international markets. People are responding very well to our message of conscious and inclusive luxury, Thomas replied, optimism coloring his voice. Great, let's continue in that direction. Also, I'd like to expand our community programs. It's not enough to be an example within the hospitality industry. We can be a catalyst for change in our community as well, Albert proposed, which generated nods of agreement around the table. The meeting progressed with discussions about partnerships with local organizations for arts and wellness programs, designed not only for guests, but also open to the local community. Albert was determined for the grandeur to serve as a center for culture and social support, redefining the role of a luxury hotel in modern society. As the afternoon gave way to dusk, and the final details of the projects were settled, Albert felt a wave of gratitude and fulfillment. Walking back to his office after bidding farewell to his team, he paused for a moment to observe the activity in the lobby. Guests from different parts of the world and staff interacted with a naturalness that spoke volumes about the environment he had helped cultivate. Reflecting on the future, Albert knew there was still much to be done. But the vision of the grandeur, not just as a hotel, but as a beacon of progress and inclusion, was what now guided each of his decisions. With this vision in mind, he was ready to face the challenges that would come, confident that each step forward was a step in the right direction. As Albert's new vision took hold, the grandeur transformed, leaving behind Percy's era of rigidity to embrace a culture of openness and collaboration. The hotel, already famous for its stunning architecture and impeccable service, was becoming known as a place of innovation and inclusion. One sunny morning, as the first rays of sunlight poured through the event hall's wide windows, Albert walked among the employees preparing for a brainstorming session. The event was part of a new initiative by Albert, monthly meetings where all employees, regardless of position, were encouraged to share ideas to improve any aspect of the hotel. Good morning, everyone. Albert greeted with a smile as he approached the group. I'm really excited to hear what you have to share today. Good morning, Mr. Kramer, replied Anna, one of the receptionists, who held a list of suggestions. I think you'll like some of the ideas we've collected from guests and the team. The group settled into chairs arranged in a circle, and Albert gestured for Anna to begin the presentation. The first idea comes from our housekeeping department. They suggest using eco-friendly cleaning products not only in the rooms, but throughout the hotel. This would not only help the environment, but could also be a strong marketing point, given our guests' growing ecological awareness. Excellent, Anna, Albert exclaimed, noting the suggestion. Sustainability is definitely a direction we want to pursue. Let's explore suppliers who share these values. The meeting continued, with employees from different sectors sharing ideas ranging from improvements to the booking systems to proposals for cultural events that could attract the local community and provide a richer experience for guests. As the ideas flowed, the enthusiasm and passion of the employees were evident, something previously suppressed by Percy's austere management. Albert's new approach not only allowed but encouraged expression and innovation. I greatly appreciate all of you for bringing these ideas. Every suggestion will be considered and, whenever possible, implemented. Remember, this is our hotel, and all of you are an integral part of what the grandeur represents. Albert concluded the meeting, receiving warm applause from the participants. After the meeting, as the employees dispersed, energized by the productive discussions, Albert remained in the hall, reflecting on the palpable change in the atmosphere. He felt a deep satisfaction, seeing how the grandeur's culture was evolving, how fear had given way to creativity, and how rigid authority had transformed into inspiring leadership. The cultural transformation was just beginning, and each step forward reinforced Albert's belief that the true luxury of the grandeur lay not only in its facilities and services, but in the way it treated every person who crossed its doors. With this philosophy, he knew the hotel would continue to flourish, ready to face future challenges with a united and motivated team. Amid the grandeur's cultural renewal under Albert's leadership, the initiative emerged to transform the hotel into not just a place of luxury accommodation, but a hub of activities with a positive social impact. With this new purpose in mind, Albert planned a series of events that would reinforce the grandeur's new image, starting with a grand charity dinner aimed at raising funds for the local community. We want the grandeur to be seen not just as a landmark of luxury, but as an agent of positive change in the community. Albert explained during a meeting with his events and public relations team. The first planned event was a charity dinner, meticulously organized to not only raise funds, but also to solidify the hotel's relationship with the community. The focus was on projects that promoted education and social well-being, areas that Albert believed were crucial for the sustainable development of the city. We'll ensure that every detail of this event reflects our commitment to the community, from the choice of the menu, which will feature local products, to the performances by community artists. Everything should reinforce our message of social responsibility and local support, Albert instructed his team. On the day of the event, the grandeur was transformed. The main hall was adorned with elegant floral arrangements, and soft lighting created a welcoming atmosphere. Each table was meticulously arranged not only to display sophistication, but also to promote meaningful conversations among guests about the supported projects. As guests began to arrive, dressed in their finest attire, they were greeted with a welcome cocktail where they could enjoy delicately prepared appetizers featuring regional ingredients. Albert, acting not only as a host but also as an ambassador of the grandeur's new philosophy, mingled with the guests, sharing visions and discussing the projects benefited by the evening. It is an honor to have you here tonight. Each contribution not only helps fund valuable projects, but also reaffirms our commitment to the well-being of our community. Albert spoke from the stage with a gleam of pride and hope in his eyes. The response was tremendously positive. The guests were visibly impressed not only by the quality of the event, but by the sincerity of the grandeur's commitment. Many expressed their support, pledging ongoing involvement with the hotel's initiatives. As the event progressed, with live music performances by local artists and an auction of art pieces donated by city artists, the impact of the night became increasingly evident. The grandeur was not just a place of luxury, it was now a pillar of generosity and social commitment. The dinner was a resounding success, not only in terms of funds raised, but as a milestone in transforming the grandeur into an active community leader. Albert watched, satisfied, as the last guests departed, feeling invigorated by the positive energy the event had generated. This was just the first of many events, and the road ahead promised even more innovations and community collaborations. Despite the excitement of the charity dinner and the positive energy it brought, managing a hotel of the grandeur's caliber was never without challenges. The changes, although largely positive, were still new, and the process of adaptation was ongoing. The incident that emerged in the following weeks was a reminder of the constant need for vigilance and improvement. The problem occurred on a quiet late afternoon in the hotel's elegant bar. An influential guest, an ambassador who regularly frequented the grandeur due to his diplomatic travels, was enjoying a moment of relaxation when an unfortunate interaction occurred with one of the new bartenders. "Sorry, I asked for a dry martini, and this is clearly watered down. Could you remake it, please?" The ambassador requested, maintaining composure but with a slight hint of dissatisfaction in his voice. The bartender, nervous and not yet fully familiar with the pace and expectations of the grandeur, responded less courteously than the standard required. "Well, that's how we make it here. If it's not good for you, I can try something different, but it is what it is." The response, while not rude, lacked the deference expected in such an environment. The awkward response reached Albert's ears, who was on-site supervising operations as part of his hands-on approach. He quickly approached, smoothing over the situation with his calming presence and a sincere apology. "My dear ambassador, I apologize for the misunderstanding. We will correct your order immediately." Albert intervened, ensuring a more experienced bartender took over. Following the incident, Albert called an emergency meeting with the Grandeur's hospitality management team. This incident highlights a gap in our training that we need to address immediately. It's not just about following recipes or procedures. It's about understanding and delivering the level of service that is synonymous with the grandeur, Albert explained, the incident serving as a catalyst for reflection and action. "I agree, Albert. Perhaps we should consider a mentorship program where our newer employees can learn directly from the more experienced ones," suggested Maria, always ready to find constructive solutions. "Excellent idea, Maria. Let's implement that. Additionally, we'll increase the frequency of our customer service workshops to ensure everyone is not just informed, but also inspired to uphold the standards that define our brand." Albert responded, determined to turn the challenge into an opportunity. The remainder of the meeting was dedicated to detailing the new training plan, which would include simulations of customer interactions and regular employee performance evaluations, all to ensure the incident was an isolated case and not a trend. With the new measures in place, Albert felt they were on the right path to solidifying the Grandeur's reputation as an establishment that transcends physical beauty and excels in every detail of service. With the team re-energized and focused, the hotel prepared to not just meet, but exceed the expectations of its guests. At the Grandeur, as the cultural reform continued to transform the work environment, Albert realized that his own personal growth was intrinsically linked to the development of his team. He became more than a leader, he transformed into a mentor, inspiring his employees to seek not only professional excellence, but also personal growth. Inspired by this new passion, Albert decided to implement a series of professional development programs that went beyond the usual hospitality skills training. He introduced initiatives that included leadership talks, personal financial management workshops, and seminars on mental health and well-being. Each of you is essential to the success of the Grandeur, but you are not just employees. You are individuals with dreams, ambitions, and potential that transcend the boundaries of this hotel, Albert explained during a meeting with the department heads. That afternoon, he organized a special session with a renowned career coach who had been invited to speak about career planning and personal fulfillment. The conference room was packed, every seat occupied by employees eager for insights and guidance. "I want everyone here to think about where they'd like to be in 5 years, not just in terms of career, but in your personal life. How can the Grandeur help you get there?" the coach proposed, sparking a series of interactive discussions. Albert watched, satisfied, as employees formed small groups, openly discussing their aspirations and challenges. He approached a group and joined the conversation. "Mr. Kramer, I'm really impressed with this initiative. I've always wanted to take a business management course, but I never thought it would be possible while working full-time," commented Lucas, a young receptionist. "Lucas, that's exactly the kind of aspiration we wanted to support. Let's see how we can incorporate flexibility into your schedule or even offer a scholarship for the course," Albert responded, encouraging him. The following weeks saw the implementation of a new policy that allowed employees to adjust their schedules to accommodate continued studies, as well as access to funds dedicated to education and professional development. The response was extraordinarily positive. Employees not only began to feel more valued, but also more committed to the hotel. Morale was visibly higher, and many began to bring innovative ideas that reflected both their personal aspirations and their roles at the grandeur. As the hotel continued to thrive under these new dynamics, Albert reflected on how each employee's personal growth contributed to a richer and more diverse work culture. He knew that investing in people was investing in the grandeur's future, a future that promised to be as bright as the lights illuminating the grand lobby every night. As the grandeur stabilized under Albert's new policies, his collaboration with Lisa evolved into a dynamic and productive partnership. Their relationship, initially forged in the revelation of Albert's true identity and the subsequent transformation of the hotel, now expanded to include a broader impact on the community through social projects. One autumn afternoon, Lisa and Albert met at the new community space the grandeur had inaugurated, a place designed to host events, workshops, and exhibitions for local artists and speakers. The space was filled with natural light and decorated with works by city artists, creating a vibrant and welcoming environment. Albert, the response to our last event here was incredible. The stories we're sharing are really resonating with people, Lisa commented, flipping through her digital planner, which highlighted the positive feedback received. I knew it would be a success, Lisa. Your storytelling ability is exceptional, and when combined with our efforts, it becomes a powerful tool for change, Albert replied, clearly pleased with the results. They were now discussing the expansion of their initiative, planning a series of podcasts that would combine the human stories of the grandeur with discussions on social development and sustainability. Lisa was especially excited about this idea, as she saw an opportunity to reach an even larger audience. Just imagine, Albert, if we can take these conversations beyond New York, maybe even globally. The possibilities are limitless, she said, her eyes shining with the prospect. I'm with you, Lisa. Let's ensure that the Grandeur's resources, both financial and human, are aligned to support this project. And I think we should start considering guests to interview, people who share our vision and can contribute valuable perspectives, Albert suggested, already thinking of potential collaborators. The two spent the afternoon planning, setting goals, and outlining the first steps for podcast production. The synergy between Lisa's journalistic expertise and Albert's resources ensured that the execution of their ideas was not only feasible, but also impactful. As the day came to a close, both felt energized by the progression of their plans. The partnership had transformed into a deep and respectful friendship, with both appreciating and valuing each other's skills and contributions. This new phase not only reinforced the Grandeur's legacy of change, but also strengthened the support and inspiration network they had created. Together, Lisa and Albert were not just improving the hotel or their city. They were establishing a model for how businesses can and should interact with their communities and the world. The transformation of the Grandeur under Albert's leadership was not just a local success story. It was an inspiration that Albert was eager to replicate on a much broader scale. With the Grandeur brand revitalized and now synonymous with ethical luxury and social responsibility, Albert saw an opportunity to take this model to new horizons. On a bright spring morning, he convened a strategic meeting with his leadership team and expansion consultants to discuss his ambitious plans. The conference room, with views of the Grandeur's meticulously manicured gardens, served as the perfect setting to envision the future. The success we've achieved here at the Grandeur should not be contained within these walls. There are cities out there, full of potential, where we can not only grow in business terms, but also positively impact local communities, Albert began, his voice filled with enthusiasm and determination. Which cities are you considering for this expansion? Asked Thomas, the director of operations, as he glanced over the maps and charts projected on the screen. I'm initially thinking of cities like Chicago, San Francisco, and perhaps internationally in London and Tokyo. Each of these cities has a vibrant cultural scene and a clear need for business practices that prioritize social responsibility alongside luxury, Albert explained, pointing to the spots on the map. And will each new hotel follow the Grandeur model? Maria asked, curious about how the essence of the grandeur would be maintained in different cultures and markets. Exactly. Each branch will be designed to reflect both the local culture and our core values. Think of sophistication rooted in the community, where each establishment not only offers luxury but also serves as a hub for human and cultural enrichment, Albert detailed. That sounds amazing, Albert, but how will we ensure these new hotels maintain the grandeur's high standard, especially in terms of service and social responsibility? Questioned Lucas, responsible for personnel development. Good question, Lucas. We will implement a rigorous training program that all global employees must complete, focused on our core values. Additionally, each new hotel will have local community management teams to ensure we remain connected and relevant to local needs, Albert replied, outlining a comprehensive strategy. The team spent hours discussing every aspect of the expansion, from financing to recruitment and marketing. As the meeting progressed, the enthusiasm surrounding Albert's vision only grew. With the plans becoming more concrete, Albert felt a deep gratitude for being able to take the grandeur philosophy beyond the borders of his hometown. He knew the challenges would be many, but the possibility of creating a positive global impact was a powerful motivation. As the day drew to a close and the team members dispersed, filled with tasks and inspiration, Albert remained in the conference room for a moment, contemplating the model of the grandeur on his desk. It was a small symbol of a grand vision, one that promised to transform not only the hospitality industry, but also how businesses could and should operate in an increasingly interconnected world. The Grandeur's expansion plans were in full swing when an unexpected scandal threatened the hotel's reputation, putting everything Albert had worked hard to build to the test. The incident began when allegations surfaced of unethical practices involving a third-party service provider supposedly linked to one of the hotel's purchasing managers. The news quickly leaked to the press, and within hours, social media was flooded with speculation and criticism. Albert, who was in a planning meeting with his expansion team, was immediately informed by Lisa, who saw the news explode on her networks. "Albert, we need to act quickly. The story is spreading, and it doesn't look good," Lisa warned, showing him the headlines flooding the news sites. Albert frowned, aware that the situation required a swift and strategic response. He called an emergency meeting with his leadership team at the Grandeur to discuss the best course of action. In the conference hall, the tension was palpable. Albert stood at the front of the room, his presence calming yet firm. "We know what's at stake here. Our reputation is built on integrity and transparency, and that's exactly what we need to demonstrate now," Albert began, looking into the eyes of each team member. Maria, who had worked closely with the involved purchasing manager, raised her hand to speak. "I did a quick initial check, and it seems the problem is isolated, but we need to conduct a full investigation to ensure there are no more surprises," she reported, showing her initiative and responsibility. "I agree, Maria. We'll launch an internal audit immediately and hire an external agency to ensure impartiality. We need to prove, both to ourselves and to the public, that we are committed to our values," Albert stated, receiving nods of approval from the team. Lucas, always focused on the human aspect, added, "We also need to communicate clearly and openly with our employees. They are our first ambassadors and need to know exactly what's happening so they can confidently answer guests' questions." Albert agreed, admiring Lucas's insight. "We'll organize a team meeting to keep them informed and seek their continued support. The truth is our best defense." With the plan in motion, the Grandeur team acted quickly. The audit was launched, and a press conference was organized to address public concerns. Albert, accompanied by Lisa, faced the cameras with a sincerity that won over many critics. "We are aware of the allegations and are taking all necessary steps to thoroughly investigate the incident. Our commitment is to transparency and integrity, and anyone who violates these principles will not have a place at the Grandeur," Albert declared, his voice clear and unwavering. The Grandeur's swift response and transparency began to turn the tide of public opinion. Social media, initially a field of harsh criticism, began to praise how Albert and his team handled the crisis. Within a week, the audit results revealed that the incident was indeed isolated and involved only one manager, who was promptly removed. The proactive and ethical approach of the grandeur reinforced the trust of clients and the community, proving that the values upheld by Albert were not just words but concrete actions. As the dust settled, Albert felt a new wave of respect and admiration from those around him. He had passed a difficult test but emerged stronger, showing that the true values of a business are most clearly revealed in times of crisis. Now, with renewed confidence from his team and the public, he was ready to move forward with his ambitious plans for the grandeur. With the scandal properly addressed and the grandeur's reputation stronger than ever, Albert was ready to close a chapter of his life and begin another, looking to the future with optimism and determination. His journey at the grandeur not only transformed the hotel, but also inspired broader change in the hospitality industry, proving that integrity and innovation can go hand in hand. On a quiet afternoon, Albert invited Lisa to join him for a walk through the hotel's gardens. The sun lit the stone path, and the air was fragrant with the scent of newly blossomed flowers. "I can't believe how much we've accomplished, Albert. It seems like just yesterday we started this journey," Lisa commented, her eyes shining with admiration and satisfaction. "And to think it all began with a small coffee and a conversation about a dream," Albert replied, recalling that first meeting that planted the seeds of his return and transformation. The two walked in silence for a moment, absorbing the peace and beauty around them. The soft sound of a nearby fountain added a calming soundtrack to the setting. "I believe we're just getting started, Lisa. The grandeur is only the first step. There is so much potential for us to expand our vision and values to other places, touching more lives and communities," Albert continued, his tone full of hope. "And where do you see this in the coming years?" Lisa asked, curious about Albert's plans for the future. Albert stopped, watching the trees gently swaying in the wind before answering. "I envision a network of hotels that not only provide luxury, but also offer opportunities and support for communities around the world. Places where the focus is not just profit, but the well-being of people and the planet," he said, his vision clear and inspiring. Lisa smiled, feeling part of something truly special. She knew that her collaboration with Albert was more than a professional partnership. It was a mission to create a positive and lasting impact. "I'm with you, Albert. I'll always be by your side to help turn this vision into reality," Lisa declared, with determination that mirrored Albert's.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.